The Time Masters have their own problems right now. They'll never know we were here. I shouldn't do this. I know that, but I am. Today on the Comic Book Report, Flashpoint Beyond. Stick around and check it out. Greetings all, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I'm back in the universe of DC Comics, taking a look at the sequel to the hit event Flashpoint. That's right, today I'm looking at Flashpoint Beyond. And while I'm so excited to review it for all of you today, I do want to mention our channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, definitely check them out with the link in my description. I also want you to know you can use my code, TheComicBookReport, at checkout to receive $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support our channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now on with the show. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume were written by Geoff Johns, Jeremy Adams, and Tim Sheridan, and illustrated by Hermanico, Eduardo Risso, Mikkel Janin, and Gary Frank. The comics in this volume were published by DC Comics beginning in 2022. The volume itself collects Flashpoint Beyond issues 0 through 6. And finally, this standard size trade paperback edition comes in at 144 pages. At this time, I'd like to give a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first look at that standard size trade paperback from DC Comics. It does have a glued binding, which I will show you momentarily, and it does have matte paper stock as opposed to something a bit more glossy, but it really is a nice paper stock, and overall I'm really happy with the presentation of what we have here. The cover of this book absolutely features Thomas Wayne's Batman, and I think that's with good reason, as he's really this story's central character. I like the use of the yellow on the spine. Definitely whenever I think Flashpoint, I'm thinking the red and yellow of the Flash's colors, so it's nice to see that represented on the cover of this book. I will say, and as we get into it, you'll definitely see for yourself, this really does not feature the Flash, really to a degree that you would expect with a title like Flashpoint. He's certainly not utilized in the way he is in the first event book, and it's really just a story about the two Batmans, Bruce Wayne and Thomas Wayne, but again, we'll get more into that as we go through the review. There was a quick look at that glued binding. Like I said, it's a really well put together little trade paperback. I didn't really have any issues there. And now we can make our way into the collection proper. We can see the title page, some of the creators, things like that, before diving right into our story. And this book really picks up with Bruce Wayne Batman teaming up with some characters I expect were from the Doomsday Clock storyline. Basically, Batman is stealing something from the Time Masters. We don't really know what or what the implications of this theft are, but it definitely impacts the story as we move forward. Shortly after that event, we have Thomas Wayne's Batman waking up back in the Flashpoint universe. This directly leads into a sense of conflict for him because he knows the Flashpoint universe is not even supposed to exist. After the actions of Barry Allen that created the Flashpoint universe, him and Thomas Wayne fought to restore the timeline, time stream for the main DC universe. Thomas Wayne's motivations really being that his son Bruce survives and becomes the Batman, unlike him in his universe who had his son murdered in front of his eyes instead. That was a really good motivation for that character in the first Flashpoint volume. This Flashpoint Batman, the Thomas Wayne Batman, has certainly appeared in other comics throughout the years after Flashpoint, most notably for me, the Tom King era Batman run. At any rate, it was really surprising to have him back here in Flashpoint, and it didn't surprise anyone as much as it surprises Thomas Wayne, because his mere existence back in this universe tells him that something is amiss again. So once again, he is fighting to bring back the regular timeline so he can ensure the survival of his son Bruce. And right from the jump, I'm intrigued, I'm interested, but I'm really waiting for the Flash to show up. And we actually have Thomas Wayne trying to find Barry Allen, who once again does not have his powers in this universe, and he goes to get the Flash's powers back, kind of like he did in the Flashpoint initial event series, where Barry kind of tries to instigate him to get his powers back. Here we have Thomas Wayne doing it after Barry Allen has no memories of these other timelines. However, someone shoots through the vat of chemicals before Barry can be struck by lightning. Barry is struck by lightning without the chemical bath, and he just fries. So that happens pretty early on in this narrative, and Thomas Wayne is really stuck now because the only speedster he can think of that can affect changes in this timeline with the Flash's powers is now dead, so it's up to him again to try to figure out what's going on. From this point, we also have a kind of serial killer who is leaving gears and different clock parts in its victims, and we have the world at war again between the Amazons and the Atlanteans with Wonder Woman and Aquaman respectively. And in many ways, we kind of pick up from a lot of the main conflicts from the first Flashpoint event, which is something I like in a sequel. However, I do think that this really diverged from my expectations in that, while it is kind of a big multiversal sort of plot development, it really focuses on a much, much smaller scale with Thomas Wayne's exploits, specifically trying to find this killer and trying to find a way to restore the timeline. We have a really interesting kind of whodunit meets detective story for Thomas Wayne. It has him bouncing around, encountering again some of those characters from the first Flashpoint. We have characters like Wonder Woman and Aquaman and Cyborg, and even the Superman from the Flashpoint universe, which is a really fun little nod in this book. However, all of those characters are really secondary to Thomas Wayne's own kind of murder mystery. That's really the focus of Flashpoint Beyond. Meanwhile, we also have Bruce Wayne dealing with the repercussions of him stealing something from the Time Masters. We have kind of the littlest Time Master, this young boy, basically saying, hey, when Rip Hunter gets here and the rest of the Time Masters, you're in trouble. You're causing like a multiversal crisis. This is going to have huge implications. We find out that Bruce Wayne basically stole a snow globe that contains the Flashpoint universe, and he's basically hoping for his dad to survive within Flashpoint, but it could cause a lot of complications. So we have all of these kind of plot threads going at the same time, but again, the focus really does seem to be on Thomas Wayne's Batman. I was kind of vexed by this a bit because while Thomas Wayne's Batman was sort of a anti-hero heroic figure in the first Flashpoint, he really graduated to what I would consider more of a straight-up villain during Tom King's Batman era, so to see him thrust back into the role of trying to save the main DC universe was a bit of a surprise to me. I don't want to go as far as to say it was out of character, but it makes me wonder if I missed maybe some books in between all of these other books. And while I don't know about that in regards to Thomas Wayne specifically, I do think it would probably be a good idea to read things like Doomsday Clock, maybe some of the Dark Knight Metal or Death Metal. I do wonder if there were some bigger DC books that I did miss before picking this one up. I know they definitely refer to a lot of the broader DC universe and kind of the branching universes and timelines and things like that within DC's lore. They go into that pretty heavily in this book. Again, it's that weird mix of we have like a multiversal level conflict, but we focus really on an intimate murder detective story. So it's a really interesting blending by Johns. I really feel like Geoff Johns is really doing some foundational kind of ground repair with the DC mythos at a huge scale, and he's setting up a lot of things in this Flashpoint Beyond volume. Even by the end of the story, we definitely have implications for the future. We have references to the Dark Crisis event, along with some other references that go kind of into the future of the DC universe that Geoff Johns is trying to build here. I think because of that, in many ways, this book doesn't feel quite as standalone as I was hoping it would. I feel like the first Flashpoint event from Johns really felt self-contained, and it ushered in, of course, a new era for DC Comics with the New 52 and things like that, but it could still be read as a self-contained event story. Yes, you could read the tie-ins and stuff too, but it felt very just kind of singular in that way. I think Flashpoint feels like it's trying to set up so many other subsequent narratives and tie so many previous previous ones together that you almost feel like you're reading a middle chapter. And while there is a story with a beginning, middle, and an end here within this book, especially that Thomas Wayne story I mentioned, I do really feel like this book feels a bit incomplete, or it feels like it's not really easy for newer readers. I would even say if you've only read the original Flashpoint event, you might want to brush up on some of the broader DC mythos, all of the Crisis books, some of the Metal books, things like that. I think things like that would really help prepare you to really get the most benefit of reading a story like this. I feel like if you go straight from Flashpoint to this, like I basically did, you kind of just are left feeling like you're missing pieces to this puzzle. And thanks to the internet and things like that, I was able to fill in the gaps pretty well, but still, it doesn't feel completely self-contained in that way. And that's something I want to bring up about this book, because I think that negatively impacts the storytelling experience for me overall. But I think the more I focused on just that tight-knit sort of detective murder mystery whodunit of Thomas Wayne, the more this book really does shine for me. I do love, as we get further into the graphic novel, we do see a relationship between Thomas Wayne's Batman and a kind of ally he has in the Penguin, Oswald Cobblepot, of this movie. We also have some interesting developments with the character of Two-Face, namely his widowed wife, along with their son, who, in this universe, we have his wife sort of becoming a Two-Face character, and we have their son sort of becoming a kind of de facto Robin character for Thomas Wayne. It's a really interesting development we have throughout this, but we get to see Thomas Wayne shine. We certainly have him demonstrating more heart than I maybe have ever seen this character demonstrate, which was pretty cool, especially by the resolution of this comic. We have the reintroduction of the Martha Wayne Joker, which I thought was such a stunning appearance in the final act of this book. Really, really loved that. I think that was an absolute masterstroke, and to see the dynamics of the surviving Wayne family in this Flashpoint universe was really kind of just shocking and jarring. We have kind of the final conflict having to do with them trying to break out of the Flashpoint universe, which is of course directly impacting that snow globe and Bruce Wayne's Batman in the main timeline. And we have Thomas Wayne trying to fight to save kind of both universes by not causing a breach or rupture, and we have this detective story again growing bigger by the end. But overall, it was a pretty tight story, again, the more we focused on the Thomas Wayne aspect of the narrative here. I will leave some of the other nuanced twists and turns of this book to your own reading, but that's really some of the broad plot points of this book. This really does have the overquality of feeling like this will be an important chapter or rung in the ladder of the DC mythos and lore, but I think for me it does fail to capture some of the magic of that first volume. I think I would have minimally expected to see more of the Flash in a book entitled Flashpoint, but again, it's more about the Flashpoint universe with Thomas Wayne taking primary character billing here. I did still really like it. It was still a fun story, but again, I think it feels a bit incomplete in comparison to the first event book. I will also say the art we have throughout from those handful of artists is all really gorgeous and really seamless. I think I was surprised to see so many artists and pencilers attached to this book, because I think the reading experience is very cohesive, and I felt like I was never pulled out of it during an artist transition on the book, and it was really just some gorgeous stuff. I mean, some of these artists attached are some kind of industry favorites, and I know for me, I think the art really, really just popped in this book. I think it was at least as good as the art we saw in Flashpoint, if not elevated in certain ways. Really, really enjoyed that. I think that this was a really creative take on the Flashpoint kind of storytelling. I think, again, the scope of the first volume, I think, was just a little bit bigger, and it felt a little bit more full. I wouldn't say this is rushed, because I feel like it did have a lot to say, and I think it articulated it quite well. I think that there's just so much more leading into this, and so much more coming out of this than that first Flashpoint event. So I do think it feels a bit messier, but I think that the writing is still rock solid, the art is still rock solid, and it was a really fun read. As we make our way to the back of the book, we actually do have a great handful of extras, which for a trade paperback was an absolute delight to see. It really left a great impression on me as I finished this book, to see the handful of extras we got. Really nice touch, DC, and that really brings us to the end of Flashpoint Beyond. So as we close up the book here, I do also want to just show an image of this volume next to the first volume trade paperback, the initial Flashpoint, just so you can see them side by side. Very cool. And that really does it for this book today. Now I think all that's left is to give Flashpoint Beyond a grade. For a comic that has both breathtaking scope and intimacy in its storytelling, the Comic Book Report is happy to give Flashpoint Beyond a B. I think that this is still an above average read that I would definitely recommend for fans of Thomas Wayne's Batman, the Flashpoint universe, or the larger DC narrative in general. I don't think that this volume feels as complete as its predecessor, but it's still a very fun adventure. The art is top notch, and I think we get some fun looks ahead at what the future of DC may hold. I can't describe the feeling of getting back into the world of Flashpoint once again. I had so much fun revisiting some of these characters and the nuances of this really interesting world within the DC continuity. This was really a blast. I'm so happy Geoff Johns re-entered this world, and we got another chapter to look at the Flashpoint world. Very, very fun stuff, but let me know what you think of Flashpoint Beyond. Let me know your thoughts if I missed stuff. I would love to hear from you in the comments. And until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to leave a like and maybe check out some of my other videos. Have a good one.